I answered the ad because I needed the money. That's the part people judge, but it's also the truth. He messaged me through Craigslist. Polite, careful with his words, not pushy, not strange. He asked normal questions, rates, location, time. He even said, please. When he arrived at the hotel room, I remember thinking how young he looked. Clean cut. Glasses. The kind of man you'd trust to watch your bag while you ran to the bathroom. He smiled when I opened the door. The moment I turned my back, everything changed. I heard the click before I felt anything. A gun pressed into my back. Cold, solid, real. My body froze before my mind caught up. Don't scream, he said. Calmly, like he'd practiced it. He tied my hands. Tight. Too tight. Then my ankles. He knew exactly what he was doing. This wasn't improvisation. This was routine. He searched the room methodically, taking cash, my phone, my ID. When he saw my fear, his expression didn't change. No anger, no excitement, just focus. That scared me more than anything. At one point, he stepped away from me. That's when I ran. I don't remember untying myself. I don't remember opening the door. I remember the hallway, the carpet burning my knees, someone screaming, maybe me. Later, the police asked me to describe him. I said, he looked like a student, like someone with a future. I thought it was over. It wasn't. Days later, I saw his face on the news. Another woman hadn't made it out. Her name was Julissa Brisman. She answered an ad just like I did. She met him in a hotel room just like I did. But she didn't get the chance to run. They called him Philip Markoff. They said he was a medical student, engaged, about to be married. I kept thinking about his hands, how steady they were, about how calm his voice sounded when he told me not to scream. That's the part people don't understand. Monsters don't always look like monsters. Sometimes they look like the safest person in the room. I remember thinking the email looked official enough. Not perfect, just enough to feel real. It said there was work, modeling, easy money. Someone had seen my photos. Someone thought I had potential. I wanted to be noticed. I told my mom I was going out with friends. I didn't want another lecture about strangers online, about danger, about how the world really works. I already knew all that. Or at least I thought I did. When he picked me up, he seemed older, but not scary. Quiet. Polite. The kind of man adults trust automatically. The house was normal. A backyard, a porch, wind chimes clicking softly. I remember thinking, this doesn't feel like a crime scene. This feels like a mistake, but not a deadly one. That's the lie your brain tells you when it wants to survive. Inside, things felt off. The air was heavy. He talked too much about rules, about privacy, about how people misunderstand him. I didn't realize I was already trapped. When it happened, when his hand stopped pretending to be friendly, my body went cold. Not panic at first. Shock, like stepping into ice water. I tried to scream. I tried to fight. I remember thinking about my sister, about unfinished texts on my phone, about how embarrassed I'd feel when I got home late. I didn't understand yet that home was already gone. Miranda was missing. That's all I could think about. Everyone told me to wait, to trust the police, to assume she'd come back. But I knew her. She wouldn't just disappear. She wouldn't stop calling. I wanted answers. When I started talking to him, I didn't think of him as a suspect. I thought of him as a connection. Someone who might know something. Someone older. Someone who seemed concerned. That's what hurts the most. He didn't lure me with promises. He didn't need to. He used my fear, my loyalty, my need to help my friend. I went to his house because I thought I was being brave. The moment I stepped inside, I felt it. That pressure in your chest, that instinct screaming, "Leave now," But you don't listen because leaving would feel rude, dramatic, stupid. Girls are taught not to be rude. I asked questions. He gave vague answers. He watched my face too closely when I mentioned Miranda's name. I realized then, too late, that he wasn't helping. I tried to back away. I tried to say I needed to go. That's when his voice changed, flat, controlled. I understood then what Miranda must have felt. The terror wasn't loud. It was quiet, heavy, crushing. I thought about my mom, about how she'd blame herself, about how she'd told me to be careful, about how I should have listened. I thought about Miranda, about whether she'd been scared, or confused, or angry. I hoped she hadn't been alone. They found us buried in his backyard. Neighbors said they'd noticed digging. They said they'd thought it was strange. They said a lot of things after. He had done this before, hurt others before. The warnings were there. The system failed. He didn't look like a monster. That's the truth no one wants to hear. He looked like a man who learned how to hide in plain sight, and learned that young girls are taught to trust, to be polite, to give the benefit of the doubt. That's what he counted on. That's what killed us. I wasn't worried when I answered the ad. It was a laptop for sale. Good price, clean listing, short, normal messages back and forth. No red flags. I told someone where I was going, grabbed cash, and drove out thinking I'd be home in an hour. The neighborhood was quiet, residential, almost peaceful. The kind of place where you don't lock your car if you're just stepping out for a minute. He met me outside. That's what I remember first. How ordinary he looked. No nervous energy. No rush. He smiled and said, "It's inside. Easier to show you." I followed him without thinking. The second the door closed behind me, the air changed. Not dramatically. Not like in movies. Just a subtle pressure. Like the room had gotten smaller. He turned faster than I expected. I saw the knife. For a split second, my brain refused to accept it. This was Craigslist. A laptop. A normal transaction. My mind scrambled for a reason. Maybe it's a joke. Maybe I misunderstood. Then the pain hit. I don't remember falling. I remember the sound of my breath leaving me all at once. I remember thinking, this isn't real. This can't be happening. He didn't yell. He didn't threaten me. That was the worst part. There was no anger in his face, no panic, just a blank focus, like he was checking something off a list. I tried to speak. Nothing came out. My thoughts scattered. Unfinished things. Random memories. The stupid errand that brought me here. I remember thinking how quiet it was. No neighbors, no traffic, just the hum of the house. I understood then. This wasn't a robbery gone wrong. This wasn't about the laptop. This wasn't even about me. I was just the person who answered the ad. As I lay there, I felt the fear shift into something colder. Not panic, but clarity. I realized I wasn't going to leave this house, not because I'd made a mistake, but because someone had decided, long before I arrived, that I wouldn't. When the police later explained it, they used words like premeditated. They said he admitted it, said he wanted to know what it felt like to kill someone. He chose Craigslist because it was easy. I was convenient. That's what haunts me. Not just the violence, but how ordinary the setup was. How many times I'd done the same thing before. How safe I felt right up until the second I didn't. If I could say one thing now, it would be this. Danger doesn't always come rushing at you. Sometimes it waits quietly behind a door you opened yourself. I answered the ad because I needed work. That's it. No drama, no desperation speech, just a man who needed money. The listing was simple. Farm help needed. Cash paid. Immediate work. No resume. No interview. Just a meeting point and a phone number. He sounded friendly on the phone. older, confident, the kind of voice that made you think he knew what he was doing. He said he'd pick me up and take me to the property. That should have bothered me. It didn't. When he arrived, he was already talking about land, about hard work, about how people didn't want to work anymore. He joked. He laughed. He didn't rush. I got in the car. The drive went on longer than I expected. Roads narrowed. Houses thinned out. Cell service faded. I noticed, but I didn't say anything. You don't want to seem suspicious when you're the one asking for a job. We finally pulled off onto a dirt road. Trees everywhere. No buildings, no farm equipment. I asked where the work was. He said, "Just a bit further." He stopped the car. That's when I saw the gun. At first I thought it was a mistake, like maybe he kept it for animals, for protection. My brain scrambled for any explanation that didn't end with what was happening. He told me to get out. His voice was calm, almost bored. I stepped onto the dirt, my legs already shaking. He asked me questions then, where I lived, if anyone knew I was here, if I had family. Those weren't job questions. That's when I understood. This wasn't about work. It never was. He raised the gun. I remember thinking about the ad, about how many times I'd scrolled past listings like it, about how normal it felt to trust words on a screen. When he fired, I went down hard. The pain was immediate, but the fear was louder. I lay still. I forced my breathing shallow. I let my body go heavy. I heard him walking around me, waiting, watching. I didn't move. Minutes passed, or seconds. I couldn't tell. Eventually, I heard the car door slam, the engine fade. I waited longer, then longer. When I finally crawled toward the road, every movement felt like it might be the one that killed me. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just focused on staying alive. A passerby found me. I don't remember their face. I remember the look in their eyes when they realized how close I'd been to disappearing. Later, in the hospital, detectives asked me to describe him. I told them everything. They told me I was lucky. 2 other men weren't. They'd answered the same kind of ad, trusted the same calm voice, walked into the same woods. He admitted it later. Said he didn't see people as people. Said they were disposable. Craigslist was just the tool. What stays with me isn't the gunshot. It's how ordinary the beginning was. A job listing, a handshake, a ride to work, and how easily that became a grave. He didn't look dangerous. That's the part that keeps replaying in my head. He looked tired, polite, almost awkward. He stood a little too far back from the door, like he didn't want to impose. He said he was just passing through, asked for help, asked if we knew anyone looking for odd jobs or babysitting work. I remember thinking, people don't knock on doors like this anymore. I regret that thought every day. The kids were inside, laughing. The house felt full, lived in, safe, normal. I stepped outside to talk to him for a moment, just long enough for everything to change. When the gun came out, my brain refused to understand it. This was my yard, my home. My children were 10 feet away. I tried to move back inside. He stopped me. His voice was calm, not loud, not rushed. Like this was something he'd practiced saying over and over in his head. I realized then that this wasn't random. He didn't just stumble here. He had chosen us. I remember thinking I could fix it. That's what fathers do. You see danger and you step in front of it. You think strength is enough. That love will somehow be louder than a gun. I was wrong. He controlled everything within seconds. Where we stood, how we moved, when we spoke. He watched our faces closely, like he was studying reactions. He wasn't frantic. He wasn't emotional. That terrified me more than anything else. This wasn't a robbery. This wasn't desperation. This was intention. He had done this before. He had watched families, studied routines, learned how to look harmless, learned which houses felt safest, because those were the ones that hurt the most. He wasn't looking for money, he was looking for control. Everything happened fast after that. Too fast to process, too fast to stop. When the police later explained who he was, what he'd done before, what he was capable of, it felt unreal, like they were describing someone else, someone from a movie, not a man who had stood on our porch and spoken softly. The house was never the same. Even for those who survived, something fundamental broke. Trust didn't just crack, it collapsed. Doors were locked, lights stayed on. Silence became unbearable. And the worst part? He had used something so simple, a knock on the door, a request for work, the assumption that danger looks obvious. It doesn't. Sometimes it looks polite. Sometimes it waits patiently. Sometimes it asks for help. Where the story still matters, because Joseph Edward Duncan didn't rely on force alone. He relied on trust, routine, kindness, the belief that this kind of thing doesn't happen here. That belief is what let him in.